Pat Kerwin joining us now, courtesy of Pinchers from Tampa to Key West and many points in between. Pinchers, because you can't fake fresh. And Pat, I know you talk almost exclusively NFL on your Moving the Chain show, weekday afternoons on NFL radio. But needless to say, there were quite a few prospects that were in that game last night, and don't know if you caught it. But I have a feeling that a couple of your callers, particularly Jets fans, drafting second overall. I mean, who do you go with? Can you go with a wide receiver? Do you go with a quarterback? Your thoughts on what you saw last night, if in fact you saw any of last night?
Oh yeah, I watched the whole thing, and we'll watch it again sometime today. I take first off, the one thing in scouting, which you really shouldn't scout off TV copy, I will have the game tape in a week or so, and then I can really drill into it because there's so many guys. And that's the first thing I taught scouts was don't try to do everything because you'll see nothing. So you really have to do it one player at a time. And if you do that in a game like that, David, you're probably talking about watching the game 18 times. If you're really a scout, now I'm not really a scout anymore, but I'm not going to go off the TV guy. But I will say this, the receiver's outstanding. He's kind of built like Deshaun Jackson, but he reminds me more of A.J. Green, just observation. Terrific route runner, et cetera. So the receiver's legit. Would I take him at number 2? Hey, if I love him, I would. But I think a team like the Jets is going to have to think about really a quarterback and maybe not, but I would not be taking the Ohio State quarterback over the Clemson quarterback. I think I'd be interested in hear what you guys had to say. I like the big defensive tackle, 58. He's definitely going to warrant a full study on his own. Explosive, fast, 3 technique. Pete Carroll used to make me look for a 3 technique every year. And I'd even say sometimes, hey, we got a guy. He goes, yeah, I know. I want 3 of them because they don't last and they get so expensive you can't keep them. So I liked him. Not so sure I like the guard as much when it comes to early round drafting, and he got hurt anyway. On the Ohio State side, I really was focusing more on Alabama. I'll get to those guys, but I would say that the game, David, you cover that conference. I would say the game is probably, and I hate saying 7th round picks, and we get so many compensatory picks now and everything else, but I'd say the game's probably going to generate 20 draft picks, 18 draft picks, one level or another.
At the end of the day, we'll find out how many of them are in the first round. Pat, you're probably going to chastise me for this, but you make me watch things a little differently. And I know after you just got done saying you can't scout from game tape, but I watched the Alabama quarterback, and it's not necessarily a deep throw. And I just said there was a screen pass that he threw that he had to get out and he had to put a little zip on it. And I went, dang, he actually drives the ball more than I thought. What are your thoughts about the Alabama quarterback from what you saw last night?
Yeah, I liked him. I don't know that I see him as a first-round pick, but I do see a player that can play in the league. And I do see a guy that's paid his dues to grind his way up to where he is. You got to be careful. Everybody and his brother wants, a runaround guy. He's not really that, but there's plenty of guys that he could function as a number 2. And then you ask yourself, if I sent this kid in, would he win games? And I think I like him enough to say yes. I would like to see. I know a couple of types of coaches that would like to work with him. Any of the guys, I don't think I want to put him on the edge all day long. But he's a big, tall, strong kid. I do like him. Jimmy Miller likes him even more than me, and Jimmy played a long time in the league as a quarterback, so he likes him. I always worry, though, I'll be honest, this is not about Alabama. It's about quarterbacks that play at places where you always have the best team on the field. It's not a great grooming ground for NFL play. It can work, but often it doesn't work because you have the best receivers, you have terrific protection, the opponent in front of you is inferior to you, and that's not NFL football by any means. And Phil Simms and I talk about it all the time. Give me a guy that I'll take my chances with a guy that's, played maybe at Wake Forest or Vanderbilt or a place where he's losing every week, and he's got to play 2-minute football from halftime on usually. So those guys, they may not be the best throwers of the ball. They may not be the tallest guys, but they're resourceful. and they've had to scramble their whole college career, and they tend to have traits that live up to the expectations in the NFL.
Well, Pat, I certainly think that a lot of people are doing a little revisionist history about Tua for what it is that you just said. And even though he didn't play last night, I mean, if you think about it, when Tua nearly won the Heisman, he had 4 first-round draft picks at wide receiver, and he had Najee Harris in the backfield, and he had guys get blocking for him that were getting drafted, some of them pretty highly. I mean, he was playing. We've joked for a couple years that it's going to take a while for Miami to put as much talent around him as what he played with in Tuscaloosa. And you referenced that, NFL teams kind of made the mistake with USC quarterbacks there under Pete, that they eventually, and you can go right on through from, Carson Palmer was there, he got there before Pete. He played under Pete, but, Pete was just building it as Palmer was leaving. But you go Matt Leinart, you go Mark Sanchez, John David Booty, Matt Barkley. We can go right through the list. I mean, some of them had their moments on Sundays, but they were far better on Saturdays.
That's my point. And I think you got to be really careful and what's the real history, big time history of Alabama quarterbacks. So it's a tricky thing because you have to keep an open mind, because one of them is going to be that gem. And you're going to, if you pass them because you have a locked in mindset that I don't take guys from big time winning programs because they don't do it. Now, back to Tua. I'll be interested in Mark's opinion. It's I think kind of mixed on Tua. I get more calls of people that don't want to keep Tua in Miami, Dolphin fans. And I just cool your jets, calm down. It's too early to even have a thought like that, let alone a statement. But it's interesting. He seems to be, not for me, but under the microscope right now. And with all the talk about Deshaun Watson and everything else, and put Tua in a pack, all that nonsense. I mean, that's good old off-season cannon fodder for now. We'll see where it goes. But I don't know. I think there's a mixed bag of opinion on Mr. Tua.
The fans right now think he sucks, Pat, and that's why they're fans. It has been laughable to the two of us. We talked to Orlando Alzagari, and I think you've met Orlando over the years at different events. He's in Miami. He thinks the same thing. There's not anybody that's a logical Miami Dolphin follower that believes that, but right now the fan base thinks that he sucks because Justin Herbert threw for so many touchdowns with the Chargers. It is one of the more unique things that we've seen in what this franchise has done in a short time, and just what the fan base, whether their realistic expectations or just their thoughts of their quarterback, are a bit crazy, Pat. That's what's going on. So what you're hearing nationally is not any different than we're hearing locally, Pat.
Well, and it's too early. So let's look at the class of 2018. They got 3 guys in the next round here. Baker took more than his share of abuse from the media and the fans. He was no good, and John Dorsey deserves to be fired, which he was. I wonder if they'd fire John Dorsey now if you go look at that roster, it's John's. But John's going to surface in very short time, I think, in a very powerful position. Josh Allen, the first year, I got a lot of Buffalo. This kid, I don't know. Why did we take this guy? And Lamar. Up till Sunday, it was Lamar will never win the big game. So every one of these guys go through it. Some come out on the other side because the fan and the media were wrong. And sometimes they're right. And when they're right once, they think they're right every time. That's the problem.
Well, and right now, if you look at the 5 quarterbacks drafted in the first round in that draft, you'd have to say they're 3-1-1. 3 have made it. Darnold's still up in the air. And right now, Josh Rosen is the bust. And we'll see if that changes. But right now, the vote is 3-1-1, and we'll see if it becomes 4-1 or 3-2. But that's how you judge that draft class right now.
And I'd say this to you: you ask any GM, and if I said to him, "Hey, this class has got 5 in the first round, 3 of them are going to be good." Oh, great! I'll take my chances. That sounds like a good draft. The guys who do this for a living realize it's a crapshoot, and anything over 50% accuracy is pretty good.
Well, before we move forward, let's move back to yesterday. Did the Eagles make a mistake in getting rid of Doug Peterson? We've detailed it on this show, the bit of the power struggle that finally came to be. And, 3 years after winning the Super Bowl, 3 playoff appearances in 5 years, and the Eagles have decided they can do better than Doug Peterson. Is that a mistake?
Sure, it is. But as I said yesterday, this is the same guy that fired Andy Reid. So let's start there. His instincts led him to firing Andy Reid. Okay. That should never be left out of the equation. Number two, if he mentions family one more time, I asked Jim Miller, have you ever been fired by a family member? Stop. And this is players hate this. We're a family. I don't want to hear he's a family member and we're going to fire him. He's working for you, man. He's an employee. And you terminated an employee. Let's keep it as it is. Keep it real. It's a business. We're not a family. They're not a family. But I got other issues there. I think the leaking out of the building has been like a sieve. And I don't know who, and they should try to find out. I had this problem. It took about 1.5 years to find out who it was, and I was shocked. And I'm glad I didn't go with my original instincts because I would have fired the wrong guy. But it turned out, and they have this problem. Someone's using the media to keep their agenda alive, and someone really interested in leaking out a ton of stuff. So that's a problem that's not going to go away with the new coach, because the new coach will be on the clock too. So that's the next thing. But I do think the owner, and I can't say too much here, but I do think the owner is starting to question everything, not just some things, everything. And I do know a little bit about who he's surrounding himself with now to go forward in the coach search and other decisions he has to make. So I hope they clean it up, but it's not clean, and it is a mistake what they did. Now, I'm not a big defender of Doug, but the premise for letting him go with the success he had was based on what? Oh, you couldn't win with all the injuries you had? Okay. Some of these guys, when they find out they shouldn't have fired a guy, and then 2 coaches later, they're looking back at the guy. When he said, we're going to put him in our ring of honor, save the cement. I'm not interested.
No doubt. And we could talk about the Eagles for the rest of this, but I want to get to some other things. Pat, I caught a little bit of your show yesterday and happened to listen to you talk to Leonard Fournette. I kind of smiled when, you just asked him about the players in the room. And he went AB right away. And I went, well, most of the time we'd shake our head. But he went AB and Gronk. And, AB can be considered a bad guy, and Gronk's the funny guy. But they're both really outgoing personalities. And it seems to me that between Tom and Arians and whatever's going on there, they're doing a hell of a job keeping the personalities represented, but still playing football, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think the head coach is the personality in a lot of ways, plus and minus, and says a lot of things. But Brady has been very good his whole career at keeping himself in check publicly and his teammates in check. If he's going to suppress this stuff and not looking for everything all the time, he might be behind the scenes, but not out in front. So you get a team that really, if Tom ain't doing it, I'm not going to do it. And Tom's put his thumb right on the top of AB, and AB's responded to that. Leonard's along for the ride, Mark. If you were listening to him, I tried to get him to just sit and tell us how much awe he might be in just looking around the room. Because when you've been in Jacksonville, you haven't been around that kind of stuff before.
But he didn't seem to be in awe, Pat. I mean, he seemed to not just be in awe. He seemed to revel in it. And it sounded to me, what I gathered from it, I'm curious what you gathered from it, is that not only he's reveling in it, but they all are. I mean, they all know what's happening with the talent around them, that they're all old enough to realize this doesn't happen every day.
No, they are definitely in a spot where they know this team has been brought together for this Super Bowl. And if he didn't figure it out, his agent will tell him, this will get probably semi-blown up at the end of the year, and you can't maintain all this. But he's smart enough to know it. But he's also been benched before this year. So I go back to Bruce. Yeah, he ran very well the other day at a bunch of yardage. We got all that, 132 yards, 23 touches, a touchdown. But he's also watched games from the sideline when they decided to go with someone else. And so he understands it's a privilege, and this is what you love to get to. It's a privilege to start on this team. And he did talk at length about how much extra mental work he does, how much he pounds the playbook, because Tom, I guarantee, Tom is quizzing him day and night, and not just about protections. And he was very quick to say, Tom really likes to have a running back who can catch. And I know Tom is encouraging him to be that guy, to when you get that opportunity, keep that opportunity. And he's doing a nice job with that. He caught 4 balls the other day. If his running, look, he ain't James White when it comes to route running and all that stuff, but he's a big old horse. He did catch a lot of balls in Jacksonville one year. So Tom's working with him and pushing him along. And I've seen Tom do that in New England. So it is an interest. Look, Tom's obsessed with winning a Super Bowl, and he can't do it unless he's got all these guys on the same page. And he's doing a damn good job of trying to keep them on the same page.
21 times in the playoffs, teams had met in which one team had swept them in the regular season. 14 of those 21 times, the team goes 3-0. The whole, it's tough to play somebody 3 times in a season. Well, actually, the team that went 2-0 has gone 3-0 14 times, and only 7 occasions have the team that went 0-2 beaten the team the 3rd time around. How much of it is just matchups in this instance, and how much of it do you think gets a little psychological? Because I do think the Saints are in this Bucs team's heads. They haven't been able to block them, and last game they thought they were ready for Drew Brees, and he surgically picked them apart.
Well, I think that is true, and I do think that it's a problem on one level, but Brady is not a guy that succumbs to that. And of course, he was in the AFC East, so he's never been swept by anybody, 3 times. So it's impossible. It couldn't even happen in that division. But Tom's a guy who's going to look at this and say, "This is my chance. I don't know if I'm ever going to get another one." He is not going to lay down and die, and he's going to think, "I got a lot of healthy guys right now." He lost the lineman. We got that. AB was a minor factor the first time they played. When he had AB, I think he caught 1 or 2 balls, something like that. Tom is going to come up with what he thinks is the way to do it, and Bruce will too. Bruce doesn't have a negative thought in his head about his ability to lead a team to wins. So they'll come in there fighting like crazy, and I don't think it's going to be. I think it's going to be an interesting, high-scoring game. 60 points, maybe more. In my mind, because someone's going to land up in 2-minute mode early, and they're going to be real dangerous. I mean, the history of sweeps and 3-0s, I get it loud and clear. It's basically just said, I think he just said 66% of the time, the 2-0 team goes 3-0.
Yeah. And you wonder, hey, it's basically saying we're better than you. We showed it in the regular season. We're going to show it again in the postseason. And I think in almost all those instances, they were playing at home. What is interesting, Mark, is one of those 7 times, a Brady team that had swept the Jets and went 14-2 in the regular season got beat by Mark Sanchez, Rex Ryan, and the Jets in the divisional round. So Brady's been on the other side of it. Now he's looking to return the favor.
Yeah, I think they're pretty much at full strength, and it'll be fun to watch. I don't think the game will be decided by the history of the reality of that stuff. I think the big players have to make big plays, and they have enough on both teams to do it. I'll probably take the Saints. I'm not sure that yet, but I never really thought that the Bucs were going to get to the Super Bowl. They might, but I wouldn't be taking them. I'd be interested to know what you guys are thinking. And by Friday, I'll have my opinion set in stone based on something. I don't know yet. I'm just cleaning up what just happened, what I thought was one of the best weekends of football we've ever had. I couldn't get enough of it.
It was terrific, Pat, but I'm going to focus on the biggest negative of the whole weekend. That was a fumble in the Buffalo-Indianapolis game. It was a fumble, Pat. We all know it was a fumble. Now, and I'm not even talking football people. I'm talking the average fan. I'm talking your wife sitting on the couch knew that was a damn fumble. Pat, This
I
is the
know.
playoffs. How the hell can this happen?
Because they have, at the end of the day, they can invent any system they want, but it usually comes down to a human being making the decision, who might not really be capable of making a decision. I thought it was disgraceful. And so what did they really say to us? The hand was on the back before the knee came off the ground. Well, we saw it enough times that we all know. If you've asked 100 guys, it'd be 99 to 1. So not good there. I also thought, this is to David, he might have been there. I thought the old stupid definition of a catch reared its ugly head on the weekend. If I heard it one time, I heard it 20 times. You have to make a football move. And calling some things incomplete. I saw a guy take 3 steps.
Yep.
And then go out of bounds, and he had the ball, and then it comes out late. I mean, that's when the fan loses faith in the ability to make definitions that work. When they went to 3 phases to a catch. Now, we just spent about 2 years without having to have this discussion, but there it was on the weekend. I will say this though, Mark, the average NFL game this year was 13 penalties, which was down 3 penalties per game over the last 3 years. The last 3 years, we averaged 16 penalties. We got it down to 13. We thought some of that was empty stadiums. David had that opinion earlier in the year that, those visiting team illegal procedures, jump off sides, there weren't as many because no one was causing the noise. I agree with that, but I love the postseason. The average game this past weekend was 8 penalties, and only 1 game was out of control. Chicago, New Orleans with 13, which was the league average for the year. 7 in Baltimore, 5 in Tampa Bay, 4 in Indianapolis, 7 in Cleveland, 11 at the Rams. So it was fun to watch football, and they do this all the time. And we've laughed in the postseason, the 3 of us. And what do they always say? Oh, no, these are the good teams. That's why the penalties are a bunch of BS.
It's Pat, I'm so glad you said that, because I've never laughed harder and yelled at the television more over a silly comment. I don't know who the ex-official is that ESPN hired. I don't. There's a bunch of them out there, and I don't even care. But all I know is very early on in the Sunday game on ESPN, the referee guy comes on and says, well, they try to call it the same way in the playoffs. And everybody on every couch in America went, no, they don't.
No, they don't.
No, they don't. They put the flags in their pocket in the postseason. But,
I'll say this to you because they do, and I'm glad they do. But I'd like your opinions. This is what I would like as it relates to this discussion with these old refs. You know what I really would like? I don't want the ref up there. I want the ref up there with a former head coach. And I want the head coach to go, you got to be kidding me, man. That was a fumble. That was a catch. I'd like to see 2 guys arguing, because it's not just the official. It's the coach who's subjected to this garbage. I think it'd be great television if we could get a little fired up juice argument going.
Well, Pat and Mark is going to turn my mic off after this. Okay. It was one thing that I thought might live on from the AAF was when they had the camera in the replay booth, and we knew the NFL would never do it. They would never give us a look into that window, but they not only had a camera, they had the audio, and the NFL doesn't have the guts to do it, but it would be compelling television.
Absolutely. And as I said last week, you know what else would have been compelling television? Zoom on the sideline with Kevin Stefanski talking to Baker between series.
And Pat, I want to get to that. Can we have you talked to Kevin Stefanski? Yeah, I know you guys are very close. And I was thinking about
7:00 yesterday morning. I said, you know what? I was at the airport waiting to jump on a plane. And I said, you know what? I know he's awake. If I was Kevin, I wouldn't sleep the whole night after what my team did for me. And I know how the players felt about him. I called him at 7. He was bright up. I said, you didn't even go to bed, did you? Oh, I went to bed. Yeah. Okay. Well, you shouldn't have. You got to soak this up for 24 hours straight. He's fine. He's ready to go. He'll be there Thursday.
Pat, just talk about the job that these players did. I heard someone make the analogy yesterday. It was on your show. It was your old producer who said it's kind of like when you're a parent, that you keep telling your kids what to do, and the whole idea is that when you're not there, they're to continue to do it. Pat, and I know you took Pittsburgh to task, and we've got plenty of time to do that. Just give it to me from the Cleveland standpoint. I'm watching Twitter videos of a guy's girlfriend calling signals in the parking lot, and he's practicing, and this guy was on the field 2 days ago. Are you kidding me?
I know. Well, I thought it was one of the great moments in football for what a definition of a team is. So it wasn't just Kevin. For your listeners, they should know the O-line coach was missing, and he is very important because he runs the running game. The assistant line coach wasn't there. Multiple players, Batonio, I can go through them all. Denzel Ward. So they were all over the place. But Juju Smith-Schuster opened his stinking mouth and started making fun of the same old Browns. And I can tell you from talking to those guys, they were obsessed with going full 60 minutes. And it's kind of fun and refreshing to know that wealthy grown men can still be motivated by insults. And they were. And then I thought Alex Van Pelt, this is right to David. I don't know, was there a better audition of why you should interview that guy? That was a tremendous game all by himself out there, managing Baker, who can get a little nervy at times, and doing what he did, and his play calling and his attack mode, which he knew his players could do. Jim Miller called it. Jim is friends with Alex. And he said it last Friday. He goes, don't worry about Alex. Alex has been waiting to do this. Alex will be more than fine. It'll be very aggressive, and it'll look good. And it sure did.
And I'll leave you with this. I do think, though, that Alex and the Browns knew how depleted that defense was. Without both corners, all right, with injuries going on, the likelihood of not much pass rush against that Steelers offensive line, I think the Browns knew from a coaching standpoint, we have to score a ton of points. And even when they got up 28-0, I know sitting at home, I was saying, better get to 38. Better get to 42. And I have a feeling that the coaches were also saying the same thing. They were looking at the clock, and once Ben and company got it going, I think that leads to aggressive play calling when we don't have enough points yet. Trust me. And they called the game accordingly. Pat, we know you got to run. We appreciate you making time for us. Be safe, be well, enjoy the Blades tomorrow night, and we'll talk Friday.
Yes, and I'll talk to you later, boys. Mark, I'll find out what you're doing, but
I'll see you tomorrow.
I'm going for my vaccine right now. Good. I will be ready.
Good for you, Pat. Great.
Yeah, man.
Good to hear. Take care, Pat.
Pat Kerwin, weekday afternoons on NFL Radio. The show is called Moving the Chains. He's also part of CBS's NFL Today show, so Pat will be at the Super Bowl this year in Tampa. Follow him on Twitter if you'd like at @PatKerwin_NFL.